Welcome everybody to today's session. My name is Joy Owango. I'm the Executive Director of the Training Center in Communication. I thank you so much for having made it to come to this workshop on open science policies and mandates in African higher education, for African higher education institutions. And we are in Egypt, and we are kindly hosted by the British University in Egypt and the Association of African Universities, the NARO office, that is the North African Regional Office. And today we have participants from all over the continent online, and also those who've come in physically to attend the workshop. And we are going to talk about what it takes to have open science mandates within our institute, talk about the concerns regarding open science and what we need to do as higher education institutional leaders on adopting open science within our institutes. Before we get into the meeting itself proper, I'll just give an introduction on the current trends on open science. Then we can have our speakers today. And for context, as we are preparing to get into this meeting, we need to understand why we are pushing for advocacy in open science in higher education institutions. And what we've noted so far is that we have, in the last 10 years, African researchers have published over 1.6 million publications, and out of this, 40.6 of them are open access. So this can increase, and one of the ways this can increase is with the adoption of open science and also using open access practices within our institutes. But then what are some of the things that we've noticed as challenges? To date, we have 1,114 open access policies and mandates that institutes have actually put within their leadership within universities have put within their institutes. But then out of this, and this is as of yesterday, and this information can be found in the open access repository mandates and policies, where institutions that have open access and open science policies have to put in copies of those policies in this platform, so that any institute that intends to have an open science and open access mandate can learn from what has already been produced. But one of the things we've noticed as a challenge is that of these 1,114 open access policies, Africa has only 36 open science or open access institutional mandates. By this, I mean the institutions within the respective countries that have put in open science policies to support their academic communities. Granted, we understand aspects of open access are TEFI, and most access on open access are TEFI, and the reality is that open science is relatively considered a new, it's not new, but it is relatively considered as novel to most of the higher education institution leadership, and it has always been driven by the library office. So what we're trying to do is bringing leadership in various aspects of the university. So you're looking at directors of research, the deputy vice chancellors, and also the vice chancellor, so that we can speak to their lens in understanding why it is essential to have an open science mandate. How can it support in the competitiveness within the institute? What incentives can you come up with or create when it comes to any of the researchers who end up adopting open science? And for that to be effective, what we've done is that we've worked closely with UNESCO. We are working closely with the Association of African Universities, and we've been kindly hosted by the British University in East Africa, so that we can have these meetings in North Africa. We started the meetings in East Africa in partnership with the University of Dar es Salaam, and we are truly honored to have this meeting in Egypt, targeting leadership of universities in Northern Africa, and to get our program rolling. And PLOS, who have been instrumental in pushing for, first of all, PLOS is the oldest, is the oldest publisher that adopted open access, and actually they are the pioneers of open access, and they've been pushing for institutions to be part of institutions and building communities in understanding why open science and open access is essential. And without further ado, would like to start the program, and we will begin with our host, one of our co-hosts, and that is from the Association of African Universities for the North African Office. And we have Professor Amani El Sharif, who is the Regional Director of the Association of African Universities for North Africa, and she's the Vice President of the Pan-African University. And she's going to make her opening remarks as to why this is an essential process for us and why the Association of African Universities is pushing for the adoption of open science in amongst their member institutions, and what the higher education institution leaders need to be aware of. Once Professor Amani has spoken, our next speaker will be Professor Yehia El Edin, and he is the Vice President for Research and Enterprise at the British University in Egypt, our hosts today. So over to you, Professor Amani. Please join the meeting. I don't have picture.
Good morning, dear distinguished Vice Chancellors, speakers, guests, and participants, all protocol observed. It's my pleasure to welcome you in Egypt. I'd like to introduce Association of African Universities as AEU is the voice of higher education, and that's why I established different regional offices in different regions to facilitate communication with universities all over the continent. And North Africa Regional Office was inaugurated in March and hosted by Al-Azhar University in Egypt. And we are connecting as narrow North Africa to the rest of Africa, but not only that, but also we connect Africa to the Middle East and Asia as well. While we are moving to a new era and new norms all over the globe, we comes the importance of this 2 days workshop on creating awareness on open access in MENA region, which initiated by the AEU in partnership with the Public Library of Science and the Training Center in Communication. No doubt that open science can accelerate achievements and can produce more efficient and effective scientific knowledge, which promoted the UNESCO General Conference to adopt the UNESCO recommendation in open science in November 2021. But actually, there is still gray areas need clarifications for the academic leaders, and we need to spotlight on them. For instance, how open science can impact on the openness and ownership, and what is the impact on traditional model of science and technology-based university-industry collaboration, and how it can affect the academic career path for academic staff. And we should be concerned about the quality of the mainstream science. From these areas, we can find the importance and the crucial need for this current workshop to bring together academics and experts to discuss the priorities of the needed action to be taken in the MENA regions, and to define our new policies, suggesting monitoring and evaluation tools in order to update the open science mandate. Actually, I'd like, before ending my speech, to thank BUE for their generous hosting of this important workshop. Professor Yahya Bahieddin, the Vice President, Ambassador Ali Al-Hifni, and BUE team, Dr. Tariq and Mr. Ali, for the diligent follow-up along the preparation process. Also, I'd like to thank Ms. Joy, the Executive Director of TCC, and from the headquarters of AEU, Mr. Abidu, and from the narrow office, Dr. Muhammad Atiyah, for their efficient coordination to make this workshop happen. And I'm full optimistic by the recommendations that can provide the academic leaders in the MENA region to go through the open access, which is right now become a necessity for our education system. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can.
Yes. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Professor Eledin, who will take us through BU's mandates on open science and what they have in support of open science within the institute. Over to you, sir.
Oh, fine.
Yes, ready?
Morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be with you, speaking from the library of the British University in Egypt in this very important workshop on open science. First, I would like to recognize Professor Amani Sharif, the Regional Director of the Association of African Universities for North Africa, and recognize my colleagues, Ambassador Ali Al-Hifni and Dr. Tariq Mahram, who worked diligently to organize this session on campus. It is important to talk about open science for this very young university, 17 years old. Why we are concerned with that? Because we're heavily publishing, even though we're very young university, 17 years old. If you look at our Scopus record, you will find this at this point in time, we have over 500 publications. So open science is as important to us as it is for everybody else. And I would like for that to praise the organizers for organizing this workshop to embrace and push the agenda for open science in Africa. We joined the Association for African Universities a little over a year ago, that's all. However, we've been active members. I hope you're seeing us like that, Professor Amani. And we joined the AAU Day last year, and we plan to join it this year as well. Our intent to be active members supporting the Association of African Universities strategy as much as we are active in Africa in various capacities. And let me name a few. In the African Academy of Sciences, for instance, and we have 5 fellows in the African Academy of Sciences, the British University in Egypt is supporting the Academy in many activities, and we hosted the General Assembly here on campus 2 years ago. And it was a mixed, virtual and physical assembly. The university was appointed to lead an Egyptian university delegation to the Commonwealth meeting in Rwanda last June. In July, the British University in Egypt co-organized and hosted the 31st African Human Rights Moot Court here on campus, a moot court competition, and with big participation from African students from many universities. Earlier this month, the university held a forum on Africa Academia's critical role in COP27, entitled Adaptation and Resilience to Climate Change. And again, with participation of many students and many participants from African universities. And last week, COP27 simulation model, fully organized by the university, was held here on campus with the participation of many African students. The university is also a home for many African students studying here with special scholarships. We are equally supportive of Open Science Initiative and its implementation on all levels, the global macro level, the university micro level, and the national meso level, and ready to work with you and to embrace and promote this practice. Please count us in and count on us. It's a noble UNESCO initiative, making science more accessible, inclusive, and equitable for the benefit of all. It comes with tremendous benefits, and it comes with core values to ensure integrity. Personally, I believe that today's access to knowledge is difficult for massive people, a number of people, and it's a shame to see eager and enthusiastic people seeking knowledge but being unable to obtain it. So, and we should be working on that. That's why the goal here today is to collaborate, to provide access to knowledge for all who seek that knowledge. And we look at the bigger picture to educate everyone who wants to learn. Given that the British University in Egypt is an energetic participant in major global initiatives, such as Magna Carta Universitatem for academic freedom and institutional autonomy, and the UN Climate Action, we are serious about contributing to the UN Open Science Initiative with focus on Africa, and look forward to continuing to work together with you towards this noble goal. On behalf of the university, again, I welcome everyone and wish you a very, very successful and productive workshop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we'll have Mr. Abednego Kortele, who is going to join online. He's going to join in from online, and he's going to online from Ghana, and he's from the Association of African Universities, and he's going to give us the continental perspective on what AAU is committed to doing in promoting open science. Abednego, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Can I share my screen now? Okay.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. All right, so I'll be very brief so we can make up time also. It's a few slides to share. So that's my name, Abednego Kortele, and I work with the Association of African Universities as an IT officer, but also supporting knowledge management for African higher education institutions. AAU, I'll give a brief introduction, was formed in Rabat, Morocco on the November 12, 1967. And so for every November 12, we do a celebration to celebrate the impact of or contributions of African higher education institutions to the continent. Initially, there were 34 pioneer institutions that formed the association. Currently, we have over 420 member institutions across the 5 regions of Africa as demarcated by the African Union. The headquarters is in Accra, and we have regional offices in East Africa, located in Sudan, University of Khartoum. Then we have the North African Regional Office, which is headed by Professor Mani, who just gave us the introduction this morning, located in the University of Al-Azhar University in Cairo, Egypt. Then we have the North American Office. Then there is one regional office for Nigeria because of the number of universities in Nigeria. Our vision is to become the leading advocate for higher education in Africa. We want to have the capacity to provide support for our member institutions so they can meet their national aspirations, support their continental obligations, and global needs. The mission statement says that we want to enhance the quality and relevance of higher education in Africa and contribute and strengthen its contribution to the development of the continent. Our objectives, some of them are to support the core functions of a higher education.
Abednego. It looks like Mr. Abednego has been interrupted. He's dropped off the meeting. In that case,
All right.
oh, he's back.
I am back online. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Please continue.
So, all right. So let me share the screen again and continue. All right. Are you seeing the screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So we provide a platform for discussions on emerging issues like we are doing now. We promote harmonization, standardization for collaboration, and for competitiveness. So the continent can collaborate and be able to compete with the outside world, the superpowers, as we will call them in education. Also strengthen the institutional capacity of our stakeholders through workshops, through engagements, and through other means, so they can deliver on their mandates. Some of our current programs is the Research and Educational Network Unit, where we provide support for institutions to have access to internet and other infrastructure to support the delivery of education. There's ACE Impact, supported by the World Bank, where some centers are given $6 million to improve their infrastructure, build on their human resource capacities, and deliver on higher education in a quality manner. We have others like the African Jobs Board, which I also invite all members who are here and participants here to make use of. The African Jobs Board helps you to advertise the vacancies you have within your institution, so other people can see the vacancies or the jobs you are offering. It also allows people to register and advertise themselves with their capacity or their skills, so people can get to know them and seek their support for employment or for collaboration. There's C code that is happening, where institutions are being helped to set up studios to prepare e-content to deliver. Then there's demographics of African faculty to support the database creation for higher education institutions, so you know where there's need and where there is an abundance of skills within the higher education ecosystem. Finally, I want to talk about AUTV, which is to promote research and notable achievements of African higher education institutions. The AUTV is now streaming via satellite, so we are not only available on this continent but also outside. So if you have any program or any achievements that you want AUTV to broadcast for you, please contact us. We would do that for you. What are we expecting from this meeting? We want higher education institutions and the research community to make use of the power of the internet to enhance the creation of research. We want to make the institutions ensure that their scientific research and its dissemination processes are transparent. We want to promote a more accurate verification of scientific results. We want to promote visibility. We want to enhance collaboration among African researchers. We want to reduce duplication of efforts and subsequent waste of resources, because we are doing things in silos. We want to make sure data and research findings are available. That is our objective for this meeting. So as we go through the presentations, you will begin to understand why this meeting is very crucial to achieving some of these things, to enhance the validation, dissemination, and reduction of duplication of efforts, so the continent can make use of the meager resources that we have in a more efficient manner. At the end of the day, we want to see policy development and adoption. We want to see university management getting committed to the cause. We want to see capacity building for members of staff for various institutions. We want to see how these are implemented. We want to have them comply with policies. We want to ensure data accessibility and shareability. We want to demonstrate responsible practice in the research process. We want to increase our research efficiency. We want to improve the integrity of the research and data that we make use of. We want to make our research outputs more visible. We want to enable more collaboration, and we want the management here, especially in this meeting, to begin to reward people who implement the things we are going to go through now. I will end my presentation here and hand over back to Joy. I wish all of us here a successful meeting, and I wish that people would contribute to their maximum quotas so we can have a successful meeting. Thank you very much, Joy.
Thank you so much, Abednego. You may stop sharing. Now, our next speaker is Dr. Anna Pasek, and she is the Program Specialist for Science, Technology and Innovation Policy at UNESCO, and she will be taking us through the UNESCO recommendation on open science. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Joy. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm very sorry I actually cannot be there in person as well, but I'm very happy to see so many people connecting also online. So congratulations again to AAU and PLOS and TCC for organizing these meetings. Obviously, there is a lot of interest, and we are very happy that we can be part of this of these meetings, of these events, and also spread the word around the UNESCO recommendation of open science. And what is also interesting for us to see is that the recommendation really is useful for all the different actors that do want to promote open science in what they're doing. So thank you again for the invitation. Thank you again for organizing these very important meetings and trainings. I'm going to share my screen just to do the presentation. Excuse me. Here we go. I hope you can see it. So I'm just gonna tell you a few words about the UNESCO recommendation on open science and why the UNESCO member states, which is 193 member states, 193 countries, decided to develop and adopt such a legal global instrument on open science in particular. One of the major reasons for starting the entire process of promotion of open science really was this need for science as a driver and enabler for the achievement of sustainable development goals or for other development agendas that have been set out around the world, including the Agenda 2063 for Africa. And what we have seen indeed is that to be able to achieve these sustainable development goals, to be able to achieve sustainability across the world, there is need also to have scientific systems, science technology innovations that are more innovative, that are more efficient, more transparent, that allow a better communication and accessibility of information among the scientific community, but also with the broader society. So there really was a need to democratize science and make the entire scientific process more efficient, equitable, transparent, and inclusive. So here, really the need for open science was quite obvious. And then, of course, we had COVID experienced by every single country in the world, which also demonstrated very clearly how important it is to have timely and free access to scientific data, publications, and information, how important it is to share information at different levels and to have quick scientific collaborations that can be put in place in times of crisis, and how important it is to have a good science policy society dialogue. So even if we have very good science system, if this connection with society is not working, it is very difficult to get the desired effects of science. We've also seen during COVID times that science can be more accessible. It is possible, just with regards to the scientific publications. While in general, we have some 70% of scientific publications that are locked behind some kind of a paywall, for COVID-19 publication, we actually have exactly the opposite. Some 85% of COVID-19 related publications are open access. And this was a global push by both the government and publishers and the private sectors, university. When everybody was in agreement, we can see that things can change. And there is no reason why this should only be the case for COVID-19 publications, because we do have all kinds of different issues which require more access to information. So in general, and from the United Nations point of view, open science does have the potential to increase the quality of science, and I think we will hear about this later in the workshop as well, and to make the entire process of science and all of its outputs more accessible, transparent, and collaborative and inclusive. For us, what is also very important is that if done properly, open science can really be a game changer in terms of bridging the science technology innovation gaps. And we see these gaps constantly widening between countries and also within countries. We also see open science as a potential tool for fulfilling the human right to science. Again, something that was very evident during the COVID-19 crisis. And finally, as I said, open science is increasingly recognized across countries as a critical accelerator for the achievement of sustainable development goals. So for all of these different reasons, in 2019, UNESCO started the process of development of a UNESCO recommendation. That's a legal instrument that countries have negotiated and then adopted in 2021 in November, so exactly a year ago. And the reason why there was this legal instrument was adopted is because while there were different initiatives across the world and across different actors in different kind of domains on open science, at the global level, we did not have a policy framework or an action framework. We did not have a common definition of what open science is, what the shared values are, and what the key principles for open science are. So after a series of consultations across the different regions with the different stakeholders, with the different partners, the member states had a look at the text. They negotiated the text as well, and then finally adopted the recommendation in November this year, last year. Yeah. So the definition that we have now for open science is very broad, and it's very comprehensive. So it looks into open science as an ensemble of practices that make scientific knowledge openly available, accessible, and also reusable for everybody, that increases collaborations among scientists and also beyond the scientific community, and that opens the process of scientific knowledge creation, evaluation, and communication within, again, scientific community and outside the scientific community. So we have open science defined around 4 key pillars. Open science knowledge that has different components such as open access to publications, open research data, open educational resources, source and software and source code, and then open hardware. But we also have open science infrastructures, open engagement of societal actors through citizen science or through scientific volunteering, and also open dialogue with other knowledge systems, such as indigenous knowledge systems or traditional knowledge systems. It was important, and we saw that through consultations with different regions, to consider all of these different sources of knowledge and to ensure that there is dialogue among them so that solutions for different issues can be found at different levels. As I said, the recommendation identifies key values and principles for open science, and it's really the key thing to maintain, of course, is the quality and integrity of science, the collective benefit, equity and fairness, diversity and inclusiveness. So we really see open science, we see science as global public good that should be treated like that, and the actions should be around that. The member states have also agreed in this recommendation on different areas of action. And for each and every of these areas of action, there is a set of specific actions that are recommended for member states and for other actors, including universities. And these actions range from creating an enabling policy environment to investment in infrastructures, in human resources, promoting collaborations at different levels, promoting a culture of open science across the scientific system, but also across society, and then promoting a common understanding of open science, its challenges, its benefits, and its impact on science and society. We also do realize that there are different challenges for the implementation of open science. And as countries, as universities, as publishers move into the implementation of open science and the implementation of the UNESCO recommendation, we do see some 5 areas which are particularly important to address when implementing open science. So The first is really a change in conventional scientific culture to go more towards collaborations and more towards openness. Then, of course, to build human and institutional capacity, to have adequate infrastructures, including reliable internet connectivity, to align incentives, and I think we're going to hear about this before, and really look into how can we also reform the criteria for evaluation of scientific excellence and careers, rewarding systems at the level of universities for the career advancement of scientists to make sure that those rewards are in line with the principles of open science. And there is a lot of different initiatives in this sense right now. And then how do we also address some of the unintended negative consequences of open science? So capacity building, policies, financing and incentives, infrastructures, monitoring. These are some of the important things to think about in the future. So just before I close, I would like to just take out some of the key messages which came out for North America and the Arab region, North Africa, sorry, and the Arab region from our consultations. And some of the key issues that were addressed at the time or kind of pointed out at the time was for open science to really work in the region. There needs to be more investment in open science infrastructures, including, as I said, internet connections and open infrastructures, open science infrastructures that really are accessible by everybody. And also there are some challenges such as, for example, the high article processing charges, which have been mentioned by the different actors that were consulted in the region, and also the need to really include all the principles of open science so that we are sure that the information really is shared among everybody and that the benefits are also shared among everybody. So there is a need to address this risk of possible misuse of the information. And again, there are ways, of course, of addressing these issues. So with this, I would like to thank you all. I'm happy to respond to all the questions. Please be part of the UNESCO Open Science movement and community. We will have an Open Science Day at the upcoming World Science Forum, which will take place in Cape Town. We will be sending the invitations soon. And we will launch at that moment also some checklists and some guides for universities on how to read through the UNESCO recommendation on open science and what needs to be done at the level of universities to implement the recommendations. So we will be happy to welcome you at the World Science Forum as well. Thank you very much, and over to you, Joy.
Thank you so much, Anna. Okay. Thank you so much, Anna. And our next speaker is Ms. Rohina Anand. She's the Executive Director of the Global Publishing and Development for PLOS. And PLOS has been instrumental in supporting this advocacy and awareness that we've been hosting on open science in Africa. And she's going to take us through what is open science and PLOS's role. Just for context, PLOS was actually the first academic publisher to adopt open access. And that is a trend which is now being adopted now by a number of publishers, but they were the first ones. They are the ones who paved the way to the process of open access in academic publishing as we know it today. So Ms. Anand, over to you.
Thank you, Joy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
And can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So I probably have to scale back on that slightly because I don't think we were necessarily the first to adopt open access, but what we did was help bring it to the mainstream and actually catalyze a change in the scholarly communications industry more broadly so that it is the mainstream business, well, mainstream mode of publishing that we see today. Firstly, let me start by telling you who I am. My name is Rohina Anand. I'm the Executive Director for Global Publishing Development at PLOS. And I'm really delighted to be here with you today as part of the collaboration we have ongoing with the African Association of Universities and the Training Centre in Communication. And it's fantastic to have contributions as well and support from UNESCO around this, from representatives of DORA and others. So PLOS, well, we've mentioned them already, Public Library of Science, but we're more commonly known as PLOS. And in case any of you aren't aware of us, we're a not-for-profit, full open access and open science publisher, empowering researchers to accelerate progress in science and medicine by leading a transformation in research communication. And we're serious about that mission and leading that transformation. We actively strive for openness and transparency throughout the whole research communication process, and that's because of the benefits they bring to knowledge dissemination, but also importantly to its utility and its reproducibility, and therefore we're purposefully open by design. I'm going to talk a bit about our mission and how we are trying to increase equitable participation in open science, and therefore how collaborations such as this one with partners in communities around the world are a huge part of that as well. So an obvious place to start when talking about open science, of course, is the UNESCO Open Science Recommendation that we've just heard about from Anna. And that's because this recommendation gives us a common definition for open science that many countries and stakeholders around the globe have aligned around and have helped define. And therefore, it's an incredibly powerful starting point for us. There are a few particular parts that I wanted to highlight again because they show how open science has equitable participation at its core. The first part is that inclusiveness is not only part of open science, but core to its principles. Open science isn't one thing, but a combination of various movements and practices, all of which contribute to making knowledge more available, more accessible, and more reproducible. Ultimately, so that knowledge can have the tangible desired benefit that we want it to, both for further knowledge creation, but also for society and humanity. Open science, when done right, can enable and facilitate global collaboration and participation. And it focuses on the processes, not just of scientific knowledge creation, but also of its evaluation and its communication. And lastly, it applies to all disciplines, not just scientific, technical, engineering, and medical ones. So therefore, when we're talking about science, we're actually talking about science as an organized system of criticism rather than a specific discipline or disciplines. I'm going to delve down a bit more into that meaning of open science and what's encompassed within it. And these helpful definitions come from a report from the National Academies of Science and Engineering. And this report, entitled Open Science by Design, was looking at how you could design a research ecosystem that works with open at its core. And it was an incredibly interesting report but I wanted to highlight again several key points for me. And one of those is that rather than being a separate or standalone part of the scientific or research enterprise, openness can and should be intrinsic to the whole research lifecycle. So that means from ideation and planning and designing research, through to conducting research and generating knowledge, through to validating, analyzing, and interpreting that knowledge, and then, of course, through to dissemination and reporting and sharing it. So open science does and should underpin the whole research enterprise and process. It involves greater transparency in the processes of scientific knowledge creation, evaluation, and communication, as we've heard, and also increased access to different and multiple research outputs. But philosophically, it remains linked to the traditional values and norms of science and research, collaboration, discussion, and inquiry. And practically, it helps to build credibility and trust in science through that increased transparency. All with the outcome that it enables researchers to address new questions and work across national and disciplinary boundaries, and so it should increase collaboration and equitable participation. How do we see that transition to open science at PLOS? Well, from our perspective, open science is about more than being able to just read an article. It's about providing the right context to understand it, the resources to replicate it, as well as the tools to collaborate and make science better. And it enables equitable participation in knowledge creation and sharing. Open science allows and encourages us to rethink how we share and consume research, and to make that move from the constraints of the physical format and take advantage of the opportunities provided by a digital world. Open science principles, both practical and philosophical, are embedded within everything we do at PLOS. Practically, we ensure availability and usability of scholarly publication, including data, methods, protocols, and code, increasing transparency and making those outputs available to everyone to use and to build upon. Philosophically, we recognize that research is a fundamentally collaborative endeavor with open inquiry at its core, and we look to place this and equitable participation at the heart of the research enterprise. So this moves us from publishing as an event that happens when an article appears to become a process that better mirrors how research is carried out and then communicated by researchers. So that might involve a registered report, which is a publication outlining planned research, through to a preprint or perhaps versions of preprints to share an early version of the work, to a peer-reviewed article, but also with the peer review materials, i.e. the reviews and the editor comments accessible, with the underlying data available for everyone to be able to use and access, with methods or protocols, code and materials also available. But as well as iterations to correct errors or to improve or add to results as the work is built upon or improved. And all of this results in, or should result in, a linked digital knowledge stack rather than a solitary article. So we can categorize both philosophical and practical aspects of open science and publishing as follows. Transparent processes, and these include identifiers and taxonomies such as ORCID and credit. ORCID ensures that researchers' work is properly attributed to them and that they receive credit for it. And that ORCID ID is also integrated with other databases and services such as Researcher ID, Scopus, LinkedIn, and Crossref. And so an ORCID profile should automatically centralize all of a researcher's scholarly contributions. Or credit, the credit taxonomy is also something we employ and have as part of the PLOS portfolio. And that ensures that each author's individual contribution to the research is defined. Preprints, I just mentioned briefly, but this is where authors share an early version of the work and get early public comments. And they enable rapid dissemination of results. They enable a group of researchers to establish priority for their work, hopefully garner increased attention via citations. And they're now, of course, also suitable for inclusion in some grant applications or from hiring and tenure committees. And with options like pre-registration and preprints, open science allows researchers to receive feedback from a diverse range of experts earlier in the research process. And that can lead to optimized methods and analysis and thoughtful, well-structured studies, but also clear reporting backed up by open documentation like pre-registered study designs, methods, data, and peer review history. Open peer review, of course, is an important transparent process. And by this, we mean open or transparent peer review. So the peer review materials are accessible, i.e. the reviews plus the editor's comments. What that doesn't mean is that peer review processes are any less rigorous or robust, or that the usual ethical checks are not applied, only that the relevant and related materials are accessible. Multiple research outputs, and these are really necessary to tell that whole research story, whether it be open data, code, or methods. And open research and documentation, including study design, methods, data, and peer review history, they really demonstrate the reliability of science. While the knowledge that researchers have chosen to open their work to scrutiny creates that positive impression and that credibility, and readers can witness the thorough assessment the work has undergone prior to publication, researchers can verify the validity of the approach, use the analysis and the interpretation for themselves. And journalists and the public can gain a more nuanced understanding of the findings. So the last category I'm going to mention briefly is countering publication bias. And what we mean by this is where papers that report positive results are more likely to be published. And one of the ways of countering this is via a registered report, which again, I mentioned briefly earlier. This is a publication that outlines the planned research, but where there's a commitment to publish the outcomes as long as that research is carried out in a methodologically and ethically rigorous manner. That means irrespective of the perceived significance of the findings. There are other inclusive criteria that we apply across and we have developed purposely across PLOS journals. But one example I want to share with you is this one on PLOS biology, and that's because we have developed inclusive criteria here to show that they're also possible for selective journals. So PLOS biology is a selective journal, but we know that selectivity has contributed to a reproducibility crisis in biology and biomedicine. And that's because of a culture where research showing what are perceived to be exciting results are often valued over studies that are confirming results. So what we've tried to do is redefine selectivity to offer more inclusive criteria for publication. That means focusing on the importance of the research question itself and the rigor of the research being done, rather than just how exciting or the perception of how exciting that result is. So as questions for publication, we ask, what's the contribution to the scientific process? Are we learning something that will significantly advance its field, independent of the outcome? Are the approaches used adequate to answer this question in the best possible way? And has the research been executed to a high standard? And this journal has both pre-registered research data, but also discovery reports, which share the discovery phase of research, and linked update articles that share confirmatory or contradictory findings, all of which hopefully allows researchers to publish without introducing pressure to have that complete story. Another example of the inclusiveness at the core of our journals is our recent inclusion in global research editorial policy. And we developed this to address the issue of parachute research, which is also sometimes known as helicopter or neo-colonial science. And we see this when researchers travel to under-resourced communities, they conduct their research and leave, but often with little understanding or involvement of the communities they've studied, and with few direct benefits to local participants. So to try and combat this, we developed a questionnaire with members of our editorial community. And this questionnaire outlines ethical, cultural, and scientific considerations specific to inclusivity in global research. So for instance, it asks the reasons why, if there are no local authors included on the authorship list. And we compile all of this information and provide it to editors and reviewers during the peer review process to help assess whether that research meets the journal's standards for the ethics of experimentation and research integrity. So as well as evolving our journals to better reflect the research process, we design them with open science principles, both philosophical and practical, at their core. That's because researchers have always driven our mission forward, and in order for us to have a meaningful impact, we need to include the broadest range of their voices globally. So our new journals create diverse communities of practice and ensure that they're at the forefront of shaping how we address the most pressing health and environmental issues facing our society. Our journals ensure diversity and equity of representation at all levels. editors, editorial boards, reviewers, and authors, and they actively seek out research from underrepresented communities. But as well as moving beyond the article, we also need to move beyond the APC, or article processing or publication charge, as it's sometimes known. And that's a business model. That's because it's a business model focused on one research output, the article. And it's the predominant business model we see in open access publishing. I used PLOS Biology, our selective journal, as an example of how we're redefining selectivity in terms of inclusive criteria for publishing. But we're also doing it with the business models associated with that journal. We see and we know that an APC model is not the appropriate business model for selective journals. So to try and counter and combat that, we developed our community action publishing model to show that selectivity is possible, but without high APCs, and to move beyond a business model that's built on articles. Our global equity model similarly doesn't work on the basis of a per article or a per unit payment to access a publishing service. And it also reflects a country's financial situations by relating to the World Bank criteria. And institutions in Research for Life countries can participate in both models for free, meaning authors from these institutions can publish for free in the journals included, subject to the usual acceptance criteria. I'm not sure what's happening with my slides, but there seems to be something happening here. Joy, I don't know if you could have a look at that.
Yeah, just continue. We will stop the person who is writing. I think they're using the whiteboard. But please, yeah.
So as well as designing our journals to align with open science philosophical practices, we have embedded and integrated open science practice within them as well. And to do that, we define 14 open science features that would be core to publishing within the portfolio. And they span the whole publishing process as shown by the timeline on the slide and embody the principles shown, those of accessibility, diversity, immediacy, and so on. Joy, should I stop sharing, then maybe start again, or?
I suggest you just continue. We will they were using the whiteboard. Yeah, it's okay. We can still see the screen. It hasn't interfered with the presentation except for the lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was referencing the 14 key open science features that are part of publishing within the portfolio. This slide shows them in more detail, and the color coding here aligns with that shown on the timeline on the previous slide to show which part of the research cycle each open science feature corresponds to. I'm not expecting you to read the very small writing underneath, but that shows the principles that I referenced earlier that each supports, whether that be accessibility, rigor, diversity, immediacy, or so on. And these practices include some which researchers will be very familiar with, such as preprints, open licenses, etc., and those which may be less familiar, such as code. But in all practices, we look to lead in encouraging open science practice, but we also work with our diverse communities to ensure adoption of these features can be as streamlined and as painless as possible. As well as embedding open science practice and philosophy within our portfolio and more widely as part of our mission, we also conduct our own research, and we've conducted and published a number of pieces of research on both our open science practices, but more widely across the open science landscape and looking at stakeholder and user needs around this. We publish as much of this information as possible and about adoption and engagement with our open science features, and all of it is openly accessible, of course. Because for us, it's not just about applying those open science features, it's about showing the outcomes and impact, and to hopefully therefore encourage more engagement with them. I'm gonna start to finish up now, but I wanted to mention some challenges and considerations about open science, and these won't be new to everyone, but I think it's worth calling them out because they're an important part of how we start to address them and work with communities to still embed open science around these. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is that open science and open access, really a fundamental part of that is an open license. It's intrinsic to true open access. And an open license is one that not only ensures accessibility, but also the full potential for reuse of the knowledge being published. So that's generally a Creative Commons or CC license, as it's more commonly known. And the CC BY license is probably the most well-known version of that. That license, the CC BY license, balances the importance of scholarly credit with the need to share research more broadly and rapidly. And under that CC BY license, authors retain legal ownership of their work, but while at the same time granting permission for anyone, anywhere in the world to read, to share, to reuse, or remix the work for any purpose, but as long as the original author is properly credited or attributed. And authors, as part of publishing open access, should not have to pay extra for this type of license. It should be a part of publishing OA in a journal or elsewhere. A common challenge around open access publishing, and one that I referenced earlier, remains article publication or processing charges. They're currently the predominant business model for open access publishing. And while there are costs for publishing, of course, that do need to be covered, authors can be, we know and are aware that authors can be discouraged and excluded from OA publishing by unreasonably high charges. And in the same way that APCs are exclusionary, waivers are not necessarily a long-term solution. And although these should be available from the majority of publishers for authors from Research for Life countries, it can be difficult for eligible researchers to discover and understand what waiver policies exist and how they're applied. So the PLOS business models that I mentioned earlier are very much purposely looking to move away from APCs and spread the costs of publishing more equitably, therefore hopefully encouraging more participation. Predatory journals, we know, are an issue for researchers who want to publish open access. And I could spend a lot of time around predatory journals, but one report I wanted to mention is this one from the Inter-Academy Partnership that describes predatory journals as those who solicit articles from researchers through practicals that exploit the pressure on researchers to publish as part of their career and as part of their being in that research ecosystem. And so while there is a definitive checklist of what a predatory journal is, features of predatory journals could include, for example, those that feature rapid pay-to-publish models, but without rigorous peer review attached, that have fake editorial boards falsely listing respected scientists on them. They may have fraudulent impact factors listed or have titles that are deceptively similar to those of legitimate journals. They may have paid review articles that promote fake science, or they may aggressively spam authors, potential authors or reviewers to submit articles or review articles that may be outside of a researcher's expertise. And furthermore, it is common practice for these predatory journals to exploit the author pays model of open access for financial gain. Therefore, unfortunately, it's often conflated with open access journals, even though it's not always open access journals that are predatory journals, leading to misconceptions that all open access journals are low quality. So again, we know that this means it's difficult for researchers to navigate the open access landscape, especially when there is pressure on them to publish if it's linked to career advancement. So how can authors recognise a reputable and credible venue for their research? There are cross-industry initiatives that exist, such as Think, Check, Submit, and they can help here because they provide a checklist for authors to consider where they should submit their research. And the checklist includes questions for them, such as how well known is the journal in your community? How clear are the journal's peer review guidelines? Are articles indexed or archived in dedicated services? Is it clear what fees will be charged and when? Are author guidelines provided on the publisher website? And is the publisher a member of recognized industry initiatives? All of this should help authors and researchers navigate whether a venue is a credible one. But of course, what they should also do is talk with their librarians who can help them with identifying credible publication venues. But true open science should combat such practice by making the processes of publication more transparent. So open science, we think there's a virtuous circle here, and there are benefits for research, for researchers, and for institutions. Because by opening research to more expert perspectives and feedbacks earlier in the process, it contributes to high quality, reproducible, and reliable research. By making more of the artifacts of research and peer review public, open science demonstrates the trust and integrity of the research and of the researchers themselves. By making opportunities to publish, peer review, and read accessible to everyone, open science at once enriches the scholarly literature, it attracts more readers to published research, and it maximizes the impact of that research. It allows more scholars to build on that work in future research. Research careers are built on scholarly output. Open science offers a broader range of publication options, including study designs, data, code, methods, peer reviews, and other research products. So researchers can share more of their science. And meanwhile, tools and technologies such as ORCID and Credit, as we referenced earlier, can help identify, track, and represent each individual's contributions with accuracy and granularity. And together, more published research outputs and more detailed and accurate records can help researchers to showcase their work and build their reputation. Increased attention raises researchers' professional profiles, while the ability to demonstrate impact makes them a more compelling candidate for grants and funding opportunities. And high caliber research, well-regarded researchers, and measurable demonstrated impact all contribute to an institutional reputation for excellence, progressiveness, and leadership, and hence the benefits for institutions. So I'll finish up there, just to say that at PLOS, we've always worked to raise the bar for openness. And we've intentionally moved from open access to open science to continue to try to define new routes to equitable participation, in line with both our mission, but also those UNESCO open science values and principles. At PLOS, we're experimenters, but we're also striving to be better listeners, because we know that a rigid approach to open science won't foster equitable participation from all communities. So we're expanding our global footprint in locally responsible ways to get closer to researchers and to other stakeholders in the research ecosystem. We want to hear from stakeholders directly, to listen to them and learn and understand the challenges that they face in engaging with and practicing open science. And so this event is a prime example of how we're doing that, working with TCC Africa and the Association of African Universities, so that we can hear directly from you, from university leadership. Because we know that by working alongside local communities, we hope we can work with you to co-create those paths to open science and to develop solutions with you that work for you in the cultural context in which you work, rather than just assuming that one size fits all and that everything in the global north applies, that applies in the global north applies elsewhere, which of course it doesn't and shouldn't. So I'm greatly looking forward to being part of this workshop and hearing from the other speakers and audience perspectives in the breakout sessions.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much, Rohina.
And apologies for my voice being a bit croaky.
No worries, no worries. Thank you so much. We will have Professor Wanyenze come in as we are about to introduce her. Just give us a minute. Okay, so I'd like to introduce Professor Wanyenze. Now, when she's coming in, one of the things that has come out as a major issue in regards to open science is incentives. So the question is, most of the vice chancellors and leadership in universities are asking, to what degree can we assign open science outputs, products that come out of open science, as an incentive for promotion or an incentive for identifying potential collaborations? How do we apply it within our institutes? And this is the one thing we've noted, is that most institutions are very cautiously optimistic on how they will adopt open science, because especially from a leadership perspective, the issue is, how do we incentivize that? How do we talk about, when we are talking about open science, how do we look at it from a perspective that a researcher will see value in it, not in terms of only visibility, but value in terms of getting promotions, in terms of not only getting promotions, but using that for increasing their the kind of collaborations they're going to get. And also from an institutional perspective, how would it support their respective academic communities? So the issue of incentives comes in as a very teethy topic when it comes to open science, because there is the ongoing debate between actual primary publications, which are used as the key indicators for promotions, vis-a-vis open science outputs. And when you're looking at the various open science outputs, you're looking at some of the progressive academic publishing aspects, which include preprints and the various processes that support that ecosystem. So the fact that even though you're seeing the directors of library science, maybe the early career researchers, being very progressive towards this modern technologies in academic publishing, you're seeing that leadership in universities are being very cautious about adopting it. And the fact that they're very cautious about adopting it, we need to understand how open science can be incentivized within institutions such that you can get a buy-in from the academic community, and also convince the leadership on how they can use that to support their respective communities. And the person who is going to talk more about this is Professor Rhoda Wanyenze. And Professor Rhoda Wanyenze, she is the member of the executive board of the San Francisco Declaration on Research Assessment, DORA, and she's also based at the University, at Makerere University in Uganda. So it should be noted that DORA has been pushing for progressive approaches to incentivizing institutions on open science, and also looking at various ways in which you can assess the performance of researchers beyond the traditional ones which we've been using, which heavily rely on citations and impact factor, especially when you're looking at journals. Now, because of these traditional methods that we have had for quite some time, we found that universities have been a bit slow in adopting some of the latest ways or progressive ways on assessing research. And unfortunately, what falls through the crack in this whole process is open science. So she's going to take us through how DORA is advocating for open science and the latest technologies that we can use especially when it comes to assessing research, and also what vice chancellors and leadership in universities should be aware of when it comes to incentivizing researchers, especially those who use open science output, who produce research based on open science, and what they also be wary of some of the concerns and how they can be addressed as well. So it's pretty much putting everything on the table regarding the very touchy issue regarding incentivization and assessment when it comes to the production of using open science outputs. So over to you, Professor Wanyenze.
Thank you, Joy. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you for the kind introduction, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts on issues of open science and the role of research assessment. From the DORA perspective, this is an area that I find quite dear to my heart for many ways. As you said, Joy, a lot falls through the cracks when the focus is on numbers and numbers of papers that you've written and where they are published, impact factors. So a lot falls through the cracks. The area that I'm really passionate about that falls through the cracks is impact. Impact. We don't do research just for numbers, and we don't do research just for where it's published. We do research to impact the communities, we do research to contribute to development in whichever fields we are. And we need to find a way to ensure that that counts, that impact counts, the quality and impact. So in terms of reviewing research assessments, I hope that this discussion can help to begin to stimulate our thoughts. We don't have all the answers. We need answers from our regions as well in terms of what's going to work for us. So I'll touch on a few issues around research assessment from the DORA perspective, but also share a few of the tools as well as the links that are available on DORA's website that we can use, and also what's happening elsewhere in other universities in terms of the move towards encouraging improvements in open science. I hope, okay. So this is what I'll focus on in my presentation, but I'm also looking forward to engaging in the discussion in terms of what else and what is it that will work for us. So in terms of making this move from open access policies just for publications. I think the publications is what we all know most of the time, and Rohina has shared a lot of this extensively. But moving from this to sharing our data is one of the areas that we are all very nervous about. It's an issue of capacity, but a lot of things that we all feel uncomfortable about, who will access our data and how they will use it. And sometimes it's just the infrastructure and capacity to be able to manage and share this data. So there are quite a number of things that we need to have in place. So this has been a challenge for many countries. It's a challenge for many universities. But generally, the issue of how we are assessed as universities, the issue of how we are assessed as individuals holds us back in many ways. And we in Africa are especially lagging in this space, but the same also is happening elsewhere. And if I could cite, for example, a review that was done around 2018, 2019 in European universities, this report, which is available on the web, shows that whereas 62% of these universities had a policy on open access research for publications, only 13% had policies on open access for data. So that is still lagging. And we don't know about the figures in Africa, perhaps for Joy and the Association of African Universities, you might have more up-to-date data on this, but I know that we are perhaps lagging even further behind than what we see in the EU picture. And one of the main challenges, as I've noted, is the reward system. It's how we are ranked. For example, the rankings have just come out right now, and several universities, especially those that are at the top, are really excited about this. And in a way, we find that those rankings hold us back because we are just looking at where we fall based on how they see this. But it doesn't necessarily always dig deeper into the impact of our research on the communities. That's one of the areas that's been really difficult. And I know there's been changes in some of these metrics to try and capture these issues, but perhaps it's not happening as fast. So maybe we need to be part of the conversation in terms of how this environment can shift, not only internally within our universities, but also externally. And Joy and the rest of the partners here, perhaps we need to be engaging in wider advocacy to make sure that some of these rankings do not hold us back in terms of delivering what really science is meant for. And because of this also at individual level, we struggle as scientists in universities because our universities adopt the same measurements that are applied on the institutions when they weigh how we perform as individuals. When they decide who should be employed, when they decide who should be promoted, we apply the same metrics that these rankings apply on institutions, on the individuals as well. We apply the standards on how many papers you have, where the papers were published, the impact factors when we are making these decisions. So because of that, the incentives for most universities are driven towards pushing scientists and especially the young scientists who are most vulnerable and eager to go up the ladders, to focus on numbers and to focus on where the papers are published and to focus especially on the impact factors when they are making decisions on where to publish their work. So making sure that we make a move towards getting our data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable is really a big hurdle for us at individual level. And we need to be working on a number of issues to review our culture, our systems, our policies within the institutions and within our higher education sectors, and how they also view us as universities to be able to move this forward. So it's a broad range of issues within and outside the university that we need to be working on to achieve this shift. I've mentioned some of this and also noted the issues of moving beyond the quantity to the quality and the impact of science. This is something that we need to pay attention to. And when we think through what needs to change within the university and the policies that we need to apply, we need to therefore pay attention to issues across the individual, institutional, and the external environment that I have mentioned earlier. We need to see what is it that needs to give way or that needs to be improved in some of these metrics when we are making decisions, not only on promotions, but even on awards for research grants for institutions that have internal research grants, but also for funders. And but the beauty is that the funders are beginning to shift actually in terms of how they determine the science. And right now we see that many funders have changed even their CV formats so that they can fit within the broader sense of quality of research as well as impact. I have been changing my own CV. For example, when I do the NIH grants lately, my CV doesn't look the same as it looked previously, because now I have to mention the impact of my research and what difference it made in my field. And the same has happened for many funders as well. Wellcome Trust has changed this, and many others, as those of you on this in this meeting might attest. This has changed because they see the value of research beyond the quantity, the number of papers, and where you have published. So they are changing, and we need to also consider changing, perhaps as institutions, so that we can align with some of these. And there are a growing number of resources that are available and networks that are supporting universities, such as the partners here, the UNESCO PLOS and TCC, as well as the Association of Universities in Africa, that are trying to support and move us to the next level in terms of reevaluating how we should work. But also similarly, other networks such as the DORA, the Declaration of Research Assessment, has developed quite a number of tools that are available and that universities can explore and consider using. Whether you are a signatory to DORA or not, these materials are available to you and you can access them freely online. This is just one of the examples that I was referring to earlier in terms of some of the challenges that other regions also face as they try to shift. And this is again on the same survey that I referred to, where most of the universities, as you can see, still valued the traditional metrics, the numbers of publications, the funding, and to a lesser extent, issues around quality and peer review. But very few of these universities recognized other important areas around research. For example, mentoring. Does mentorship really matter in universities? Is it rewarded? Mentorship and support for younger people or for students. What about outreach services and knowledge transfer? And that's what helps us to impact communities and to impact the development arena, as we saw in the SDG framework that was shared by Anna. And then, of course, there is the open science. Do we reward people for making their data openly available, or are we focusing just on the papers they've published and where they've published them? So you see that fewer universities up to today are focusing on this, and we need to change that perhaps if we are going to shift towards open science. So this is about DORA. DORA is about 10 years old now, since it was initiated during a meeting of the American Society for Cell Biology in San Francisco many years ago. That was in 2012, but it has grown, moving from the initial concerns around how the impact factors are driving decisions on promotions and funding, to expanding towards advocacy and supporting capacity building, but also developing tools and case studies of other institutions and how they've gone around trying to make these shifts, so that there are examples that we can learn from as we try to make our own shifts. So DORA has expanded to be able to provide that broader support, and all these tools are available on the website. There are many organizations as well as individuals across many countries that are now signatories of DORA through this period. And DORA is also continuing to grow and evolve in terms of supporting the signatory institutions so that they can make that journey towards the reforms that will help us, especially focusing on how we assess research and how that drives the behavior of researchers as well as institutions, and drives inequities and perhaps reduces the impact of research. So in terms of assessing, again, as we've heard from several speakers, this is an area that is fairly complex, because to make a shift in terms of what we value as researchers and as research institutions, higher education institutions, we have to make a shift across the entire ecosystem within and outside, and how it influences the way we think and act. So this is a complex area, and similar to the open research movement, research assessment reform has been difficult over the years, because it has to change issues across the entire system. So making this even more difficult is individuals' interventions based on individuals changing alone is not going to help. And also focusing just on one university might be difficult. So we need a network across universities. We need a network that will also touch on the external environment, our higher education sector and how they value us, and also research and innovation mechanisms within our countries and how they value a university that is productive is really important. If they are going to continue to measure our productivity based on numbers and numbers of papers, it's going to make it very difficult for us to shift. So this is what makes it really difficult, but it doesn't mean that we should not work on it. It just means we need to appreciate the complexities and we need to advocate for those areas that are beyond our control so that the relevant actors can begin to also reform. And that's why we need national level reforms if we are going to reform as institutions within the countries where we are based. So we need to be mindful of this. We need to advocate for that change to happen, but we also at the same time need to review where we are as institutions so that we can also make the shift and support individuals within our institutions to enhance the capacity, change the culture and thinking to make this happen. So DORA has several tools that are available that focus on some of these areas and that you can access on the website for DORA in case you would like to be able to use some of these tools. But also DORA has been doing a lot of advocacy and reaching out to funders. There are several funders that are now signatories to DORA and that are represented within the network as well as the board of DORA. And because of this, we have started seeing the shifts which I referred to earlier, that the funding institutions are also changing because previously they were focusing on the same quantitative metrics that made it very difficult for us and we had to conform. But now that they are shifting, it makes it so much easier for us also to shift. And we are doing this through a number of networks. We are doing webinars and opening up and getting other stakeholders to participate. And I do appreciate sharing this as well. Then there are the resources that I talked about, the case studies. You can find this on the website. They are available. And I'll highlight one of these, which is the SPACE rubric that helps institutions to begin to move and walk that journey of achieving these reforms. You can find this document in a detailed form on the DORA website. But the key thing about this is that it was developed also in a participatory manner with the individuals as well as institutions across a number of countries, across 26 countries and 6 continents to try and take care of the uniquenesses across the region in terms of developing this tool. And I would also like to emphasize that when we do look at these tools, they do not assume a one-size-fits-all because institutions are at very different levels in terms of their capacities, in terms of their policies, and also in terms of their reforms. So this tool does allow flexibilities for the institution to be able to cater for those uniquenesses in terms of where the institution is. But it's also important to look beyond individuals, as I mentioned earlier, to the institutional conditions and infrastructure to gauge and support and make sure that we improve the institutional capabilities and also focus on the impact of the interventions that we institute to make this shift, to have mechanisms to track the progress and be able to identify challenges and deal with the challenges as the institution does the reforms. You can look at the details on this document and you can also look at the case studies for some of the institutions that have achieved these reforms. In terms of the commonalities, and I do appreciate that we are moving together, that DORA and the open access, we all do focus on the same issues confronting the global as well as individual inequities in the production of research, and how research is assessed is really critical to open access as it is for the research assessment movement. And we need to examine the existing structures, the power structures, so that we can be able to increase participation of the least privileged societies and communities as we act on issues of open access. I have worked with colleagues previously to author an article, for example, where we were drawing attention on the issue of inequities in the capacity to use data when it's openly available, capacity for researchers, especially in the low and middle income countries, to be able to fully maximize the data that is available openly out there. So even when it's openly available, there can be a disadvantage to some because of the capacities that we have. Even just the capacities to be able to manage the data, archive it, let alone making it openly available, is a big issue. So we do share that, and I hope we can continue to advocate for that so that we can improve the equity in terms of research access to data, and being able to impact our communities in an equitable manner. DORA has also recently issued some grants, 10 grants, which were awarded to several countries to support institutions in making that shift to improve research assessments. So in conclusion, I think that this move is inevitable. We can't run away from it if we are going to maximize the utility of research and research data, but we need to work on certain issues that will help us to be able to make that transition. We need to focus on the policies, the infrastructure, the systems, but we also need to focus on the incentives, because human beings, even institutions, will respond to incentives. Rankings, hires, promotions drive what we do. So we need to pay attention to changing the incentive structure if we are going to make this possible. And this needs to change at institutional level. It needs to change at national levels in terms of how our sectors view our performance as educational institutions. It needs to shift on the side of the funders. So we need to do some advocacy to make sure that this happens. But we also need to network and learn from one another so that we can come up with the homegrown solutions in terms of what's going to work for us in Africa and what level of openness we wish to adopt. That is something that we need to engage on, we need to debate so that we can find what works for us. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my thoughts on this. Back to you, Joy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Wanyenze. And we are getting into the interactive bit of our session. And what we've shared with you is the global perspective on open science. We've also talked about why we need to have open science and the concerns that we have very few open science mandates within our institutes. And when I talk about the mandates, it's depending on the institute, sometimes we call them policies, but it is, I'll just focus on the word mandate, but at the end of the day, what you're looking at is an instrument that can be adopted within your institute, such that when your university adopts open access, open science, and even open access, and any of the pillars that fall under open science, it supports the academic community, not only from the research life cycle, but also most importantly, from the incentivization aspect of it. Then what we've also noted is that open science is a discussion that started with the library, okay? As much as it started with the library, it has been adopted. It's a conversation that is being had with vice chancellors. It's been had with deputy vice chancellors of research. And the question is, how do you convince them that open science is relevant for their institute? So we need to speak to their lens. And because of the fact that we have very low open science mandates in Africa, as I said, cumulatively, we have 36 open science, there are only 36 open science mandates that have been recorded, which show that the institutions that have committed to having open science within their respective institutes, meaning that every single output that comes out of it is recognized as a quality output, and it also means it has an incentivized aspect of it. So meaning that the researchers within that academic institute can comfortably practice open science, and they know that there will be an incentive coming out of it and will be given the same weighted value as if it was a primary, or it was the traditional form of publishing or the traditional form of working through their research life cycle. But because of this slow adoption on open science and this slow acceptance by leadership, with valid concerns that they do have in regards to open science, which we've also addressed, and we'll also be talking about tomorrow because this is a 2-day meeting. We want to understand what your concerns are. What are your concerns regarding open science? What is it that you feel that your leadership should be aware of in regards to open science? What do you think are the challenges that you face within your institute in regards to open science, and what do you feel is a roadblock by the leadership in the adoption of open science? And when I say this, remember, they have valid concerns. They are, from a vice chancellor's perspective, their concern is the reputation of the university. Their concern is not only the visibility of the university, but also the reputation of the university. And we've all acknowledged that there are unintended challenges that come with open science, which vice chancellors are very cautious about, because at the end of the day, it will be the reputation and the impact of the university which will be affected. So with all said and done, what do you feel are the challenges of open science? I'm going to put you in groups, and we will have our co-hosts moderating those groups. And what I've put in the chat, if you can check the chat, there is a link that shares not only the program, but also shares the challenges. If you go through the chat, I'm putting it again, and we are going to discuss in our respective groups. I need you to list the challenges you face in adopting open science in your institute. In the physical meeting, we're going to have our group session and have the discussion and have one of us share their views, but I'll give you 20 minutes to discuss this. List it, put the list, just all of you all have access to that link. So you can start typing what challenges you face when it comes to what challenges you face when it comes to the adoption of open science, and what do you think needs to be done. So just list the challenges and the concerns that you're facing within your institute in regards to the adoption of open science. We are about 109.
Joy, can I ask
Yes.
a quick question? Sorry,
Yes.
so there's a slight difference in the program timing. So we're starting the group sessions now, are we? And
Yes.
do you have a rough, rather than, because there was a break scheduled, I think, originally?
No, we had a break schedule, but since we are not many here physically, so we felt that let's go with it so that we are done.
Okay, and
yes.
so 20 minutes for the breakout groups, and then we'll reconvene, will we?
Yes, we'll have 20 minutes.
Okay,
20 to 30 minutes so that they can discuss. We are about now 111, so we are going to break you into the groups, and we will assign every person, each group, we will assign, please, within the groups that we assign you to, please make sure that you assign one person who will be representing and we'll be taking, not only all of you can take the notes because you all have access to the link, but choose one person who will be moderating. We'll be going through the rooms to support you to make sure that you understand the exercise. I hope I hope I am clear. So the assignment is list the challenges and concerns that you are facing in the adoption of open science within your institute. Okay, we've said that it is already a global mandate thanks to the UNESCO recommendation on open science. And then I've also shared with you the challenge that there are only 36 university mandates, open science mandates in Africa. Okay, I've also shared the fact that there's cautious optimism when it comes to the adoption of open science. And this is because vice chancellors are a bit cautious about adopting open science. So please list those concerns. List those concerns, because tomorrow, when we are talking about how open science supports in competitiveness in higher education, we are going to help answer some of those concerns, because we are going to have experts who specialize in university rankings. We're also going to have policymakers from South Africa who are going to talk to us about how they have adopted, how they're in the process of adopting open science at a national level and the impact it's going to have on the academic community. So something we can learn at a national level, and then we're also going to learn at a global level, because it comes down to how can open science support in competitiveness, because this is a conversation that has been done mostly by libraries, but now it is the vice chancellors and the DVCs who need to understand how this will impact their offices. I can see 2 questions before we get into the group session. So Ngozi Osabede, yes,
Yeah.
Please.
I noticed I can't write on the list. Is it open?
It is open. It is open to everyone.
No, I noticed I can't write on it.
Oh, okay. We'll change. Oh, yes.
I requested for access and it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for alerting me. Now you all have access as editors. Please confirm that you have access as editors.
Okay, let me close and go back.
All right. You now have access as editors. There was also another question. Do you have access as editors?
Let me see. Let me go back.
Please confirm.
Okay, I'm coming. Let me confirm.
No, Joy, I don't think we can access actually still.
It has been updated. Yes, I can see somebody is commenting.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right.
The thing needs Google Doc.
It's a Google Doc. I've shared with you the Google Doc, and you all have access.
So if you don't have Google Doc on your system, you might not be able to do something on it. So that's what I see.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can see some of you already commenting. All right. So start listing it. As I prepare to get you into your group sessions, you will be listing. Just follow the numbers that are, just follow the order in which you're going to put we are going to number it, okay? Okay, good. So now the next step is the next step is that I'm going to put you in the group sessions, and don't worry about the formatting. That will happen as you're going through the session. So I'm going to break you into groups. We are 100, so that means 10 groups. Okay, and then those of us who are in the meeting room, we are going to have our discussion, and please assign one person who is going to talk on your behalf. You all have access to the document. So I can see you've already started putting in the challenges. And remember, also talk about the challenges you're facing when you're working with leadership. Okay, so what is the concern that you feel the vice chancellors, the deputy vice chancellors, the directors of research, the deputy the directors of research, the DVCs are what challenges you're facing when you're communicating with them. How can you make them understand? So just list all that. List all that when it comes to the challenges you feel that arise when it comes to the adoption of open science within your institute. You have now 30 minutes. I'll give you 30 minutes and please go into your rooms. The rooms have been opened now.
Chai.
Yes. And I've paused recording. So once again, welcome to the session, and we are almost finalizing. And as I said, we are finalizing with the presentations that you are making in your respective groups. So one of the things that came out as a concern in the physical meeting, and this has been presented by one of the vice chancellors, is that there is insufficient engagement on open science to leadership in the universities. So to be specific, there is engagement on open access. This is in regards to publishing, but then there's little information that they feel, the vice chancellors felt that there's little information that is brought to the table, even in Senate, in regards to open science, especially when it comes to how it's connected to competitiveness within the institution, and also helps in aiding in competitiveness for the institution, and also in regards to how it can be used for incentives, how it can be used as an incentive package when you're looking at promotions. So, excuse me, even though we are saying that it is not easy to, there's lack of clear guidance within the institute in regards to open science, the vice chancellors are saying aspects regarding open science, especially when it comes on how it aids in competitiveness, how it aids, how we can use it from an incentivized perspective, rarely reaches their desks or even rarely reaches Senate. So with that in mind, we need to be aware of, this is why I said we are having this meeting. When you have leadership within such meetings, you realize that maybe there are concerns that are not clearly spelled out to them. And this is why when we have this meeting, we need to ask ourselves, because we're going to discuss that tomorrow, what we need to do to support the Vice Chancellor's office, the DVC's office in making sure that they adopt open science, because they're saying it rarely reaches their desks. They get information in regards to open access, which is one of the pillars under open science, and that is in regards to publishing, but very little information in regards to open science, especially when it pertains to the competitiveness of how it will support in the competitiveness of the university, and also how you can use that from an incentivized, how it can be used from an incentivized perspective. So without further ado, we are going to have one of our speakers who is going to present from the room. No, yeah. So that will be Professor Mbati. He's the Vice Chancellor of Sefom Bafokeng University from South Africa.
Our leader.
Our leader.
Thank you very much, Joy. And I must also express appreciation to my team here at the British University here in Egypt. So yeah, so very briefly, I think Joy has captured succinctly the issues that we've been debating on. One is, as it regards to open science, is issues of data. If data is made available, its relationship with, and of course, its relationship with IP, if this is going to lead to intellectual property rights, trust. You know, how are you able then to build trust in that regard? And I think what is important is a greater clarity for researchers and academics then to use this particular kind of platform. There's also a view that was raised around challenges with the rigor in terms of peer review. Do you still have the same type of rigor as compared to the traditional peer review that is done when we publish? I think that kind of information needs to be presented so that there is a greater buy-in into this concept of open science. I think, as Joy has indicated, there are discussions, a lot of discussions that happen in universities around open access. But again, as it relates to open science, is the fact that the executives at institutions, and I mean, we were giving an example. I gave an example just about a month ago. We've gone through a rigorous process of reviewing the policy for promotions of academics. And we took into account a lot of the issues that were raised earlier, you know, the physical count of the publications, of course, the quality in terms of impact factors are taken into account, students that have been supervised or mentored at various levels. It could be undergraduate, the final year students, master's students, doctoral students, community engagement activities in terms of the reciprocal relationship between the academic project and the community. So all that is taken into account, except some of the issues that we've seen here as it relates to the open science. And by the way, we do not, many institutions do not have such policies. So I think we need, especially at the executive level, to be sufficiently empowered with this type of information so that the decisions can be taken. Then there was an issue about costing, that some of these open science platforms, particularly when it comes to publication, are very expensive. So the contradiction between equity and the costs is something that we need to be able to discuss and get a solution. Otherwise, the buy-in then becomes problematic. Yeah, so Joy, I think that is very briefly what our team wanted to present. And I want to thank my colleagues for the contributions. I was just representing the rest of the team. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So thank you. Thank you so much. And that was the contributions from the group in the physical meeting. Now, let's go to group one. Group one, who is going to represent group one? We had Caleb, Esther, Lydia, Marjan, Mosepele, and Tefere. Who is going to represent group one? Who is going to represent group one? Okay, so let's go to group two. We have Ansu. We are going to come back to group one. Ansu, Iman, Janaki, Mohammed, Moses, Pauline, and Trinity. Who is going to represent you? Who is going to represent you? Janaki? Group two, who is going to represent you? All right. So I'm just going to move to the groups that are ready, and then we will read some of the issues that have been raised, that have been put together in the document. Group three. Group three. Group three, we had Bongiwe, David, Horace, Jackton, James, Alaja. Please, who is going to represent you? Did any of you choose group leaders who are going to represent you?
I think, Joy, if that was breakout room 3, I think that was Moseruku had volunteered, but I don't know if she's still on the call.
I don't think so, because I didn't see her.
I think she might.
Yeah.
Moseruku, and apologies for the pronunciation. But
yeah, no, she's not in. That's okay. So, yeah. But you see, we have the documents with the list, so we'll still read them out.
We do, and I wonder if that might be an easier basis to start from for tomorrow. Sorry, apologies, I can't report back. My voice is going.
No worries, no worries, no worries. Group 4.
Yes, Joy, it's Anna here.
Yes, Anna. Mhm.
I was in group 4, and maybe you can also read out the name of the others who were there.
Good. We had Ida, Chifundo, Dativa, Dorcas, Edwin, Eunice, and Tebogo. Yes.
They were, and it was a very good group. We've had our chats around the challenges for open science. So many of the things I was just reading through the challenges in the list. This issue around the additional necessary funds that may be needed for open science, including with regards to high article processing charges, but maybe even more importantly, a low awareness of what open science is more broadly, about this misperception that open access journals are lower quality, that open science, openness is something that does not have the quality control that is necessary as in traditional, more closed science. There was also the concerns raised around predatory journals, and that there needs to be a little bit more guidance as to which are the different predatory journals in different disciplines, and then how to avoid them or how to report them. Another very important thing that came out is that beyond open access, there are also different other components of open science that are now being implemented across different institutions and universities, and one of them being open data. And there is need for much more guidance as to what open data means, B, what skills are necessary, what resources, particularly human resources, are necessary to ensure the stewardship of data, the curation of data, and then also the correct use of data, open data. So beyond open access, also these other parts of open science, open data, but then also open engagement with the traditional knowledge holders or with society through citizen science. So there is a lack of awareness, and there is a lack of guidance on how to do that, both for the university management, but also for the researchers themselves. Another thing that was mentioned also was the important role of librarians and libraries, university repositories, and again here the importance of libraries, and again the fact that they would need more support, both in terms of capacity building and financial support, to be able to take on this role of raising awareness and then also guiding staff of universities in their open science and open access practices. And another last, I think, thing that was raised was recognition for young researchers and early career researchers, and how does open science get into that, and what are the different incentives that one can put in place to make sure that young researchers get their recognition also by practicing open science. So I'm going to stop here, and maybe the other members of our group, if I've missed something, please let me know.
Thank you, Anna.
No? Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Anna. So now we are in group 5. Who is your representative in group 5? Who is the representative in group 5? Yes, Lorita. Lorita? Okay. Lorita, can you hear us? Or is it Dorothy? Dorothy, are you the one who's going to speak? Okay. So group 6. Who is going to be the representative for group 6? We had Betty, Doris, Eunice, Olu, Roslyn, Rosemary, and Stephen. Who is going to be the representative? Who is going to speak on behalf of group 6? Okay, Lorita, I can see you've raised your hand. Do you want to present on behalf of your group, or Doris? Doris, do you want to represent on behalf of your group? If so, just unmute. Okay, we'll go to group 7. Group 7, we had Anna Carson. We had Abednego. We had Doris, Ferhat, Janet, Joe Haverman, Lomosi, Ngozi, and Omolola. Who is going to present on behalf of group 7? Okay, Joe. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, Joe, then would you like to represent on behalf of group 7? Okay, then unmute. Are you able to unmute?
Yes, and that might also have been the problem for Doris and Loretta. So maybe they want to speak now or after.
All right.
Okay. Should I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so group 7, thanks for everyone for the exchange. We added to the list the following points raised. The lack of opportunities for sharing negative results in the current incentive system, which will be easier under an open science mandate. Then there was a concern regarding the lack of open access and open science policies, in particular, I think for Kenya. And I don't know, Joy, maybe you can have already elaborated on that and where the work stands with having a Kenyan open access, open science policy. And I think it's great to have open access policies, but there's like open science is just wider as a concept and enables for other practices to also be included and follows the UNESCO open science recommendations. Then conference proceedings are in Africa often still in print, and it would be easier, and also in the, like, just following the idea of open science, if they were increasingly digitized and therefore being made more widely accessible. Capacity building is needed regarding legal aspects such as copyright, not only for researchers, but also for managers and staff at data and manuscript repositories. We spoke about publishers being inhibitors and or enablers of open access dissemination, and we have 2, if not more, great examples in the room with PLOS and Faculty 1000. And I also want to mention AJOL here, the African Journals Online, which provides access and incentives for best publishing practices, has a list, like an exhaustive list of also African open access journals, as well as closed access who are on their route to open access. And then we called for an increase of mentorship and also incentives for enabling mentorship and encouragement for open science practices for junior, but also senior research staff. I think that's all for now. Please, anyone from the group 7, if there's something to add. Otherwise, that's us. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. If you're unable to, if you're unable to hear me, please put it in the chat, and I'll have you unmuted so that we can speak. So now that was group 7. Group 8. Group 8. Group 8, we had Inas, Galefe, we had Lena, Mohammed, Roscoe, and Aisata, and Ismail. So who is going to speak on your behalf? For those who have raised their hands, please put your question in the chat on how we can help you, unless you want to speak on behalf of your group. Inas, yes, you're going to speak? Go ahead. Inas, you're from group 8. Are you going to speak?
Yes, he would like to speak, but the host was not allowed me to unmute myself. So,
That's okay.
okay.
All right. Now you can speak.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I would like to share the exchange what I have with my group 8, and I would like to thank them for the exchange. In the beginning, I would like to say that ignorance creates the fear and refuse. For that, we discussed the negative sides of not being able to enter of the open access. It's the first point is about awareness. So if we have a good awareness of the open access, it will remove the barriers and give the opportunity for the researchers to understand and to know more of the policies and of the open access from a trusted sources. Also, it will give the opportunity for the guidance how to do it in the perfect shape. The second point we discussed is about the capacity for using for the utility and for the training, having the good training for the researcher and for the university management. For supporting and creating the infrastructure which will support the open access through the software of a platform for open access across the university and across the universities too, especially through the AEU. The last point is about the funding for supporting the sharing and publishing in open access for making ideas, researches, and innovation more open for all the researchers. It needs a support of funding and grants. So we are speaking about financial reasons. In the end, I would like to thank the team of the group 8, especially Lena, Ismail, Roscoe, and Makoni. And if there is anything they would like to add it from the group 8, kindly do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I can see some hands.
Yes, I'm trying to unmute myself. I've been having challenges doing that.
Now you're already unmuted. Are you going to represent your group?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. My name is Larissa. I'm Zufaya Kumasi. I'm in group 5. We listed some of the challenges of open science in Africa, and we listed that one of the challenges high cost of the article processing fee that's been experienced in Africa. We also listed the challenges of raising funds at institutional level for research publication, and senior researchers being too comfortable in their promoted position. Those that are already promoted, they don't have that feel to push forward again for open research. And we also have lack of trained researchers, lack of trained expertise in this field. We look forward to list out some of the ways forward, some of the ways we can manage these challenges, and we agree that there should be some form of funds provided to the young researchers to encourage them in their research field. There should also be a reduced cost for the article processing fee in Africa. And we encourage local journals. We are encouraged to form our own local journals with trained experts that can manage it. Then we also listed that there should be collaboration with senior professionals in our respective fields. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah.
Bulin here.
James?
Can I go?
Oh, yes. You want to add one more? Please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Olu Joshua. I represent Group 6. We have a lot of discussion in our group, and a lot of things that we did really deliberate. Is some of the things that have already been mentioned, but some of few things I felt we mentioned in our group that was not mentioned is one, we're looking at data integrity and security. Now, let me give you an instance from my own point of view. I'm the director of publication and journal coordinator for a private firm that publishes journals in Nigeria. And we're also a member of Crossrev and some other association like that. So when it comes to open access and open science, we aren't new to it. We just understand some certain things. I've seen where someone wanted to publish with one of the journals that are published from Kenya, and the person said, what am I sure my data is going to be secured? So the fear of your data being secured always made some people to draw back in this thing. Now, apart from that, some kind of lack of political will within the institution also causes this. Then if you had again another thing, fear of unknown. Like most of the people at the end of their affairs in, like you mentioned, you said 36 universities did adopt the open science. Now, most of the people at the end of these affairs in some of the, I'm using Nigeria as an example, in these universities, you know, Nigeria have much university compared to any other country in Africa. Now, most of them, they still believe in this analog of a thing. So the fear of unknown make them to want to like kill the concept or discourage the concept and make it a little bit difficult for the younger ones coming up. Then apart from that, the technical know-how. There's no how you want to practice open science that it doesn't involve IT. A lot of people, a lot of universities, like I said, analog, no matter how you see how the thing is, that I don't want us to be clouded with what we find around ourselves. A lot is going on. Some of them they are still behind. You understand? Then we look at the paucity of funds. If the person that is to release the fund for you, like in Nigeria now, there's someone who called TED Fund that could hit some of anything that has to do in institution. Some of the people that are at the helm of these affairs, they don't just buy your idea. They see some of the things you're bringing on board to look like a threat to them. And they are going to stifle it. They are going to make sure it doesn't see the light of the day. So these are some of the challenges that are there. We also mentioned something about motivation. Who is going to motivate you? Is it not the person ahead of you? If the person doesn't know what is there, what is it going to motivate? So these are some of the challenges that open science is facing. We know that open access, when you want open access as its own principle and its own model, somebody has to finance it. Whoever that is publishing want to get involved. Like for instance, let me give you an instance. We, like I told you, we are a publisher. We are a member of CrossRep. We know how much we pay as membership. We are a member of OASPA, Code of Ethics, and all those things like that. You pay every year some substantial amount of money. So when it comes to the finance, it's also a challenge for people to adopt this thing. Thank you. Let me yield the floor for now.
Thank you so much. Moline and Doris, do you have comments before we go to group?
Yes, this is Doris. I have a little contribution to make.
Yes. Group what?
I am under group 8 and I just have a little contribution to in addition that. Okay, so I'm looking at the perspective of the institution from where I came from. I'm from University of Port Harcourt here in Rivers State, Nigeria, and I realized that acceptability of open access journal is quite poor when it comes to upgrading or probably trying to assess are not actually accepted. And almost 85% of my journal as an author has been rejected because I published under open access. And I keep asking myself, what is the problem? And I realized that they are looking at open access journal or open science to have a weak structure. I don't know why, but they see that the structure is quite weak in terms of the editorial screening. So the editors of open access journal need to be reviewed. The policies also need to be reviewed. You realize that when you submit your manuscript within less than 7 days, they've answered you, and the next thing they are talking about is the publication charge you should pay, and you should also, comply. So the policies of open access journals need to be reviewed because they see that the editors are quite weak. You need to strengthen the qualities of your editors the personnel you use as editorial team need to be, strengthened. You also need to look at the modality for submission. Most times the modalities is quite weak when you compare it to some other journals like the Elsevier journals or the Springers. Open access journals are actually very weak in terms of modality for submission. The editors need to be properly trained. And also when we submit journals, I'm talking from the perspective of an author or a researcher from an institution. You realize that when you submit your manuscript, your manuscript, I'm coming from pharmacology, will be sent to an editor in epidemiology or probably in physiology. So open access journals, part of your policy, should try and put a square peg on a square hole. Send the right manuscript to the right professional editors who should be able to assess your work, properly. And also acceptability, like I said, is very poor. Elsevier and Springers are quite more accepted for in my institution, for grading and all that, more than open access journal. And then secondly, predatory journals are of increase under open access journals. And that is major reason why my institution have refused to accept open access journals or open science, because of the level of predatory journals found under this system or under this science. So we still need to look at it. You should be able to differentiate between, researchers should be able to differentiate between the genuine journals under open access and predatory journals. There should be a standard way of identifying, either by giving them a password, giving them a code, or classifying them under a particular group, so that we can be able to differentiate between predatory journal. And these are the reasons why my university has refused to accept some of the papers published or research work done under open access journals. And the fee, like I said, is not really too outrageous when you compare it to other journals. The fees are not too bad. When you look at Elsevier, look at Springers and all that, you realize that these journals under them, you have to pay as much as $3,900, $4,000 to make a publication of which that is not even up to your salary. So these are the few observations I've made under this, and that's actually the primary reason why I have to join this conference, to bring to your notice that most of the journals under open access are not accepted by my university. And it pains me so much because it's 5% of my papers and under these journals, and they are not being accepted. Why? Because of predatory journal, because of the nature of the editors, and because of some other issues I wouldn't want to make, data analysis and all that. So thank you very much for your time, giving me the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution. And what you've made very clear is the option that most of the universities that are choosing to go for non-open access journals comes down to trust, okay, and the existing traditional models that have worked for them. But what you're trying to say is to look beyond to look beyond what already exists in order to have more progressive approaches to academic publishing, which will also in turn help you. Lena?
Please, can I just say
hello?
something to the last?
Let Lena.
I just want to.
Yes, let Lena talk. Then
okay.
Next. Yeah, Lena?
I was from Group 8.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just want to add on infrastructure and capacity to install open source softwares within institutions. For the reason that we do not have funding in Africa, most institutions do not have adequate funding to publish gold open access because it's extremely expensive, because APCs are hyperinflated. So as a result, we dwell on the green open access, which is delayed open access because of the embargoes from commercial publishers. So we need infrastructure for the repositories. I think Anna spoke about repositories, and in Africa, most of us are practicing green open access instead of gold because of the funding. So the issue of infrastructure, some universities do not have repositories for the reason that they do not have IT people with the capacity to install software and to manage the software. And I just want to comment on the issue of predatory journals. I think we overemphasize on predatory journals, but we do not have a unanimous agreement as Africans on what it is. And the major challenge for us on the continent, we undermine ourselves so much, which reflects a lot of colonialism, because we think anything from the global north is perfect. I would like to object to the fact that all open journals from Africa or from other global south countries are predatory, for the reason that, first of all, there is an editorial process, there is peer review process. If you want to say some of them are too weak because they are emerging, I understand. We need to separate between predatory and emerging journals that are still growing, they are still beginning, and at the end they've got a goal of being accredited. We see everything on Africa as backward, and we see Elsevier, Taylor and Francis, Sage as being these huge publishers. Remember, they are taking APCs, but African editors are chief editors for free. African reviewers are there for free. They are not being paid for all the work they are giving. And the enhancement of scholarship they are doing in all those journals. So please, can we try to evaluate our journals? If we see something wrong, let's engage with editors of these journals to say, we think this is not right, and have a dialogue as Africans. Can we stop allocating every African journal as predatory? I think that is wrong, because the same academics are also supporting Elsevier, are also supporting Taylor and Francis. I think we need to do something as Africans to try and have a little faith with our own capacity as scientists.
Thank you so much. And what you're saying is very right. There needs to be increased capacity building on for local publishers. I know African Journals Online is doing an excellent job, but it's the only bibliographic database for the continent. And
yes, I just want to make a contribution. Lee is actually right, but open access, we need to strengthen our structure and make it firm for acceptability and make it competitive. We are really good. Africa has a good layer of good journals. Open access is good, but the structure is very weak. By the time we strengthen our structure, it will become competitive like other outside African continent journal. Thank you.
That is very true.
Okay.
Just hold on a second.
Can I come in?
Olu, you are coming to you. Yeah, we are coming to you. So as I was saying, that we really need to build our capacities. And what I'm trying to emphasize on is that it is happening. It is happening. It is much more aggressive. We have various organizations in the continent pushing for this. We have the African Open Access Open Science Platform, who we've invited tomorrow, who will take us through what they're doing in creating awareness and building capacity on open science and open access. There's also what we are doing as a center. There's LibSense, which is also working in the continent in supporting awareness and supporting infrastructural systems. Then there's also the University of Cape Town. The University of Cape Town is supporting any African academic publisher by providing open science, an open source infrastructure to support the journal publishing workflow. So yes, we are cognizant of the fact that the infrastructural systems are weak and we're not sitting on our laurels. What I'm trying to say is that we have African partners who are supporting the academic community in the infrastructural systems, especially when it comes to academic publishing, in awareness, so that we can make better, we can make informed decisions when it comes to open science. Olu, and then we'll have group 9 and 10, and then we wrap up. Yes, Olu.
Okay, thank you very much, Eunice. You see, I want to come in as somebody that is experienced when it comes to this publishing of a thing. From the membership of the global something that my organization belonged to, I discovered that these people out there, the European or the Americans, those developed countries that are already into publication, I don't think they are seeing us as second fiddle in Africa. No, they only have some standard, which I, as a person, I have a law background, and I also research and I also publish, apart from being the director of publication for the organization, you understand? But when I see the scheme of things they do, they are right. Let me give you an instance. There was a journal in Nigeria. It's a university-based journal. They came to us. We created a platform for them to like, okay, fine. we will project you electronically, you just handle your thing. Now, by the time they were constituting their board, we saw the editorial board and we tried to put them that, look, this is your editorial board. There's no diversity in it. If there's no diversity in it, how do you think you can be open to new ideas? They didn't accept, you know, this ego of a thing, academicians and all those things. By the time we submit them to direct open access journal for screening in order to index them, they step them down and then point to the same thing to them. That how can you put 75% of the people on your editorial board are a member of your university? And by the time we investigated the people publishing with you, 85% of the people publishing with you are from your university. How can we be sure you did really carry out your peer review properly? How are we sure you're not biased? You see, these are some of the things that we should work on from our own side. Then apart from, how do you know a predatory journal? Number one, the title of the journal. Each journal always comes with an ISSN. You can always investigate it to know how true the ISSN number is. But put that aside, that's still minor. Another thing you should look at the aim of the journal. Does it go in line with their title? Also, look at the people that make up the editorial board. Look at their professionalism. Look at their area of specialization. If there's nothing like that, that is in line with what they stand for, please run away. Do you understand? Now, there's somebody that was talking about open access, open this. Please, let me just educate you that when they said open access, if you go online and you want to get some article, maybe probably you need to review them. You will see some, they will say, oh, you need to pay to access this thing. But when it comes to an open access, the author has already paid. So anybody can download and view it. But for those ones that they restrict the access, they want you to pay. So the only benefit of open access is that to the outside world there, they can see what is there without paying anything. So in terms of scaling up your editorial policy and all those things, open access is just a scheme that the author will be the one to pay for us making it available free. Not that the person that want to use it will come and subscribe. There are two different things.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your insight and emphasizing on the difference between open science and open access. So
Sorry to interrupt you.
Doris, we need to wind up because we have two.
Okay, just a little contribution.
Sorry?
Yes, a little input. The input I want to make based on the last speaker is that, you know, that naturally people tend to value what they pay for. Do you understand? The people tend to value what they pay for than what they have openly access, most often times. So, but what I'm saying is the policies from open science should be such a way that there will be more stringent method or more stringent policies to make the acceptabilities of this journal by the institutions higher. Are you getting me? That's just the point I'm trying to.
No, that is very true. That is very true. And I like that you're trying to give the differentiation, but also, yes, this is why we are having this conversation, such that when we have the policies set or mandates set within the institute, they are very clear on what it entails, what open science entails, how it supports in regards to the various pillars on open science, that is the open data, open access, which is focusing on publishing that Oli is talking about, open source, open infrastructure, which I've also shared with you. There is the IT aspect, there's the IT aspect, that is where we have National Research Education Network, so NRENs, and that is why, and also when it comes to infrastructure, we are looking at the support in producing the workflow, in supporting the workflow in actual publishing, which I mentioned the University of Cape Town is doing, but it is the global aspect of open science. All these aspects that we are sharing with you that need to be presented to the vice chancellors. As I said, some of them mentioned that this level of conversation in regards to open science rarely gets to their tables. They get a lot on open access in regards to publishing, but they rarely get information in regards to open science, because all this cumulatively adds to what makes a university competitive. Okay, so let's get group 9 and 10. Is there anything that has been missed out that you want to share? Representatives from group 9 and 10, we are getting to the final hour. So we had Tijani, Famau, Ibrahim, Kemotse, Majobeng, Otu, Pangani, Vincent. That was for room 9. Is anybody going to talk from room 9? Okay. Then we have room 10. We had Felicitas, Henry, Lydia, and Madina. Is there anyone who is going to speak?
Madina here for group 10.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to thank our group members for group 10 for their wonderful contribution. You'll find that a few things have already been said, but in our group, we realized that in Uganda, for example, last month, there was a Vice Chancellor's Forum. And that Vice Chancellor's Forum was held in Kampala, in the capital, to discuss issues of open science. And Vice Chancellors agreed that whereas majority of the universities in Kampala, in Uganda, are actually private than government, government is not supporting them. Therefore, they do not have research funds. So that alone, there is also low research interest among academicians. They also established issues to do with the overlapping aspects or issues in terms of replication and reproductivity. And also universities cannot afford to actually pay or remunerate the issue of motivation to researchers who are going to make this information open access. So probably in the next few years, Vice Chancellors will not say that these issues are not getting to their table. The issues were openly discussed in that meeting. Now, we had an experience from one of our brothers in South Africa, and they actually said the issue that has already been discussed was the traditional access to research practices. And therefore, we believe that there is need for a mindset change. If that mindset change can come in, then we will actually see a real way to achieve open science. Then librarians lack knowledge and are not grounded. Therefore, we need capacity building and capacity development. We are all aware that librarians are academic staff, and they are mandated to actually look for this information and feed the academic and research staff. Then in Kenya, under Moi University and Egerton University, they have actually embraced open science and open access. But you would see that the responsibility to provide researchers and academicians with the open access articles so that they can facilitate the research activities is overwhelming, and therefore they lack manpower, and the majority of their staff actually lack knowledge on how to do it. So they are saying that to them, they are working on creating awareness among the academic staff and researchers, and this will actually empower every academician and researcher on how to actually get hold onto this information easily. So there is still a capacity building issue there. And then they also mentioned from Kenya that under Egerton University, they are trying to push for policy approval on open access because some academicians and researchers do not want their work to be posted on the repository. Why? There are cost issues and also a sense of belonging. And that is why later on, majority of their academic staff run to predatory journals, of which they don't know that they are marketing them with their weak structures, but simply because they are desperate for promotion. So there are quite a number of cross-cutting issues there. Then a colleague from Uganda and Makerere University actually shared an experience where she's saying that she only got an opportunity to learn about repositories of universities and open science, open access, when she was submitting her master's dissertation. What is happening in Uganda is that now they are encouraging, I think they are promoting open science, where universities are encouraging bachelor's, master's, and PhD students or postgraduate students to submit their thesis or dissertation to the library as a hard copy as well as soft copy. Before they see your work on the repository, they do not clear you for graduation. So we are saying it is important to sensitize. Students don't know that these open access are existing in universities. They only know at completion. So we really need to create awareness. Then there was also an issue that came in. Researchers are busy, and time allocated for librarians to engage them is very limited. So you would see that the technical staff who are supposed to promote this are also not given an avenue. So on a broader scale, you will find that you can only engage academicians after a break towards the beginning of an academic year. And majority of them are not embracing technology. You know, as we have already discussed, we have that discussion that we are so traditional. And usually when you want them, their response is too low. They only come to you when they need a bit of information, journal articles and books from you. And this makes it very difficult for them to do their work. People here, for example, if I give an experience in Uganda, in private universities, we are given load for teaching, and for teaching is 18 to 15 hours. Now, you need time to prepare the notes. They tell you if you don't publish, you perish. You realize you have to do curriculum review. There are so many academic requirements that one has to do. So it is creating a state of madness among academic staff, and then limited time is allocated to research. So it's only for people that have strong heads that will survive this test of work of time. Then there is less engagement. Members, this has already been discussed, but I want to conclude by saying that in a Ugandan context, all vice chancellors were in that meeting, and we hope that if they embrace, the future for open access will be bright. I thank you very much. Those were our submissions as Group 10.
Thank you so much. And we are winding up. This has been a very, very fruitful conversation. It was very interactive, and I know it's also a bit emotional, because right now what we're saying is that, honestly, open science is the way to go. That's where we are heading. We've already started adopting it in various ways, through open access, through open books, open knowledge, through open infrastructure. You've been using it at some point. You've been involved in it. What we are trying to say is we need to have it in a much more seamless approach within your institute, such that it can come with the following incentives, all right? So that you don't have this conversation on how you're going to compare the traditional models of publishing vis-a-vis the much more progressive ones. Remember, we have to also think about early career researchers. Most of them may not even have access to some of these traditional journals because of maybe the prohibitive cost, but because of, thanks to open science, they can adopt various open science practices to make their work accessible and visible. Now, today is day one of this workshop. What we've learned today is the challenges that you're facing, and we've seen a list of up to about 58 challenges that you have in regards to how you feel open science is not being adopted within your institute. We've heard from the researchers side, we've heard from the librarian side, we also heard from the vice chancellor's side. Basically what they're saying is that we need to discuss open science from the lens of the vice chancellor. How will it help them become more competitive? Okay. Now, tomorrow, as we are finalizing the session, we are going to focus on case studies. Number one, open science at a national level, how it is being done in South Africa. The open science policy in South Africa is at, it hasn't been released yet, it's at draft 2. So we actually had to ask for permission to talk about it. So yes, we can talk about it. It's at draft 2, it's at the ministerial level, but what impact will it have on the universities? So learning from what they've gone through will also guide us on what we can adopt within our respective institutions and also countries. Also being aware of the challenges, because in South Africa, what they're saying, how they're looking at open science is from not only a higher education perspective, but from a multi-sectoral perspective. So they're looking at how will open science have an effect in the Ministry of Trade? How will it have an effect in literally all the ministries, just beyond the higher education and science and technology, okay? Then we're also going to look at how open science can guide the university from a competitive aspect, especially when you're looking at rankings. You see, we can't ignore that. As much as we are looking at very progressive ways on research assessment, which we are pushing for. We need to also acknowledge the fact that there have been traditional ways of ranking universities, which university vice chancellors are looking at, which even researchers look at before they even decide to work in any of these universities. So bearing that in mind, we are going to have conversations on how these rankings, how open science can also contribute to rankings in the institution, within your universities, and how you can be competitive. And we're also going to have a speaker from the Library of Alexandria, and they're going to take us through what they are doing as the Library of Alexandria, which is pretty much the rebuilt version of the ancient Library of Alexandria. What we are going to, and what they are going to take us through is how, as not only as an institution, how as an institution they are trying to promote open science in Egypt, and the activities they're trying to do to push in making sure that there's literacy on open science, so that we can have a uniform conversation on this. So we are going to start tomorrow again at 9 o'clock, and we'll finish at 1. And just in the same format, we're going to have the presentations, and then we're going to have a group discussions. And the group discussion now will be on what you need to do to help the vice chancellors make this decision. We have already discussed about the problems, but what are you going to put on the table to help support the vice chancellors, the deputy vice chancellors, in making sure that open science is mandated within your institution? Now, before I close the meeting, our colleague from Ghana, Mr. Abednego Colette, would want to say something. Abednego, over to you.
Yes, this is just a short announcement that the conversation won't end tomorrow. So even for those who are unable to join us tomorrow, there's African Universities Week coming up, where we will continue with the conversation, and we would want to invite all of you to be there. I think Joy will give you the details about that meeting as well. The week of November 7th, 9th, and 11th. These are the specific days that we have the discussions. So all of you are once again invited. Please come and listen to case studies, come and listen to what others have done in this area to reward those who are implementing open science and other issues to open science. So that is all that I wanted to add, Joy. And congratulations for the good job you are doing.
Thank you. So as I said, we are winding down. So today we've talked about the challenges, and we've shared with you at least what is happening at a global level. You have the link to the challenges. We are going to clean it up, which we are going to also share with you tomorrow. But tomorrow, when we are talking about how open science aids in competitiveness, and also what is being done at a policy level in the continent, you need to ask yourself, what can we do to work with the vice chancellors and the deputy vice chancellors and the leadership in order to achieve the creation of open science mandates within the institutes? Okay. Remember, they have concerns, and their concerns comes down to trust. Some of them have said it's an issue of trust. It's an issue of accountability. It's also aspects of intellectual property rights. So what are we going to do to help in making sure that when this is being presented to the vice chancellor's office, they have the buy-in, because the vice chancellors have to report to the ministers. You know, we tend to forget that the vice chancellors have to not only report to their councils, but also to the ministers. And when it comes to that level, the issue is, how can a university be competitive? So we need to ask ourselves, how will open science help in making a university competitive? How are we going to work with the vice chancellors in making sure that they have these open science mandates, and also in turn guide the universities in making themselves competitive? Because for all intentions and purposes, they're the ones who sign off on whether we are going to have an open science mandate or not within that same institute. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and we will see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Goodbye for now.